After 56 years, the San Diego Chargers are moving to Los Angeles. The mayor is not happy, fans are upset, and questions about what happens next are coming from everywhere. I'm Mark Sauer. The KPBS Roundtable starts now. Welcome to our discussion of the week's top stories. I'm Mark Sauer, and joining me at the KPBS Roundtable today are sports writer and author Jay Paris. Hi, Jay.
Hey, Mark.
Good to have you back. KPBS business and environment reporter Eric Anderson. Hi, Eric.
A pleasure, Mark.
Freelance journalist Tony Perry. Hi, Tony.
Mark.
Welcome back. And Roger Sholey, who covers growth and development for the San Diego Union Tribune. Hi, Roger.
Hi, Mark.
Good to see you today. Well, as shocking news goes, it came like the expected call from hospice care. The big effort to keep the Chargers in San Diego has been on life support for years now. But on Thursday morning, team owner Dean Spanos pulled the plug. It was days before a deadline to pick up a lease option at a pro football complex in Inglewood that's being built by the owner of the Rams. They're now the Los Angeles Chargers. That decision didn't sit well and is the year's understatement. Here's what Mayor Kevin Faulkner said at yesterday's press conference.
At the end of the day, the Chargers wanted a lot more taxpayer money than we could have ever agreed to. We could not support a deal that is not in the best interest of San Diego.
All right, Eric, you covered that press conference for KPBS. Who was there? Tell us the mood. It wasn't a fun scene, was it?
The mayor was there. Ron Roberts was there. Scott Sherman of the San Diego City Council was there. Elliot Hirschman from San Diego State. There was a member of the Regional Chamber of Commerce there. And the feeling was really one of coming to terms with news that had been made public on the internet just an hour or so before. Dean Spanos not meeting with the media here in San Diego, but he did release a statement on Chargers.com that announced his decision to move to Los Angeles. And as for the mood, you kind of, it was very upfront for some of the members of the people who were speaking there, but yes, people were not pleased with the outcome in this particular case. Yeah,
I mean, they said things like the Chargers never were a team player. They didn't operate in good faith. They never were really genuine in sitting down and keep an effort to stay here and get a stadium.
Ron Roberts probably drew some of the most attention yesterday, nearly coming to tears during that news event, talking about what the team meant to him and his family and how he thinks it's really kind of ripping at the seam of the fabric of society here in San Diego. But at the same time, Mayor Faulkner, who kind of led the media event, also looked toward the future. And he said, look, this is an opportunity. We've gotten all these great minds together to talk about what can be our future, what we can do with the Qualcomm site, what we can do in terms of the future of the city of San Diego, and he wants to try and use that energy to move forward. All
right, and we're going to get into that in a minute and talk about some of those ideas. But Jay, you've covered this team for decades. You've got a book out, Game of My Life, San Diego Chargers, Timing is Everything, and Comedy and Hand Grenades. A surprise when the Spanos finally did pull the plug here?
You know, not really surprised. I don't know if that's the right word. You could see this coming. I mean, we all have a left tackle. We weren't getting blindsided by that one.
Right.
They've been working on this for a while. That being said, I think just the finality of it, or just that the affirmation that they really were going to do this, and what that meant to so many people. And I know in my book signings, I'm signing these books, and I'm just expecting to tell football stories. I've got people crying to me, you know, and they'll tell me about going to the games with their dad, or how their niece came over and watched every day. And so they are such a part of San Diego. You know, it's sunsets, fish tacos, and the Chargers in the fall, and that's going to be missed. And if you think otherwise, there's going to be a lot of long faces, especially when the football season starts back up again.
Well, I thought,
Tony?
If you looked at the different way that Faulkner and Roberts responded, you saw two different ways to look at it. Faulkner talked about the cost of it. It would have cost us too much.
And the effort. He talked about that as well.
Roberts talked about, I think, the value of it and what we will lose. And I think he talked about, he indicated how connected we get to these professional teams and the players, and there's an emotional value. Whether that trumps the cost, I don't know.
Well, I think it might be generational as well, with
Absolutely.
Mr. Roberts being a little older, and there's few bigger Charger fans than Mr. Roberts, and him bringing his grandson around.
Right, and then a lot of us are from somewhere else and didn't grow up here with the Chargers.
Take Faulkner's way of looking at things, the cost. Okay, the voters made a cost decision and turned down Prop Measure C.
Right.
And then Spanos made a cost decision. So the values really get trumped. Money talks and the rest of the stuff walks.
I think we should go back and see how they came here in the first place, because it tells you why San Diego wanted it to begin with in 1960. They thought of it as putting San Diego on the map. It would help tourism, because you'd have San Diego splashed on the TV every single weekend of the fall. And it was a great moment in San Diego history to have them come here in the first place.
Yeah, the camera shots and showcase the city when the city was just taking off and getting on the national.
And the owner, Baron Hilton, came down here, it is said, because he thought he could not compete with the Rams in Los Angeles.
Where the Chargers, everybody remembers, played their first
season. They were
season.
getting only 10,000 seats filled at the Coliseum in
But that was a new league, too.
New league, yeah.
New league. It was a different game.
Rams,
it didn't rely on television like today's game does. So the reality, I think, the financial reality is completely different in 1960. And they're going to make a lot of their money off of TV, just like they always have.
Well, to wrap up this event yesterday, I did want to go to we got a bite here from the council member, Scott Sherman, whose district the stadium is, and he was one of the more blunt folks at that. Let's hear that.
Even Prop C, when they came forth, they knew it was doomed from the very start. 2/3 tax increase hasn't passed in San Diego, and I can't remember when. What they did do was put that forward, knowing it wouldn't work, so they could go to the NFL and convince the NFL that they needed to have their relocation fee reduced. And lo and behold, we hear their relocation fee is being financed over a longer period of time.
Well, he's talking about some Machiavellian gamesmanship, and the whole thing was kind of a sham. Few $1 million to supposedly promote that, but it was all to get this relocation fee. Tell us about that, Eric. How much is that? It's not going to be cheap for them to move
It's
there,
not going to be cheap. They're going to pay $650 million over a number of years. The NFL is going to let them pay back the money slowly. But, you compare it to what they were offering locally, right? They were offering a $350 million stadium subsidy, but they're willing to pay $650 million to move to Los Angeles. People like Scott Sherman have said that they didn't feel that they could believe anything that was coming out of Spanos' mouth. We heard Dean say that he wanted to stay in San Diego. We heard Dean say that San Diego was important to him, that he thought he had a future there if we could get the stadium issue resolved. But Dean Spanos, at the same time, parallel to this, did a lot of things that pointed toward him moving up to Los Angeles. The day after the NFL decided that the Carson project with the Razors was dead, but they would give San Diego an option in 12 months to move to LA if they so chose. The day after that happened, they trademarked the name LA Chargers. And they said it was a business decision, just in case. But when you look at it now,
Jay, what do you
I think that's part of all this, that, okay, the team moved and that's heartbreaking, but it's the way it went down. And this was so un-San Diego, these negotiations. I mean, this was East Coast, we're going to break your kneecaps, with Fabiani and the attacks and the threats. And every Sunday for me, it was, watch Meet the Press, make coffee, and wait for the leaked story to come out to the NFL. They leaked stories, and there was just this, where the Padres they gave you the template. They gave you the blueprint. Go out there, kiss babies, be nice, be San Diego, invite somebody for margarita and go to the beach, we'll work this out. That was the San Diego way, where this was always seemed like, you better do this or we're out of here.
Tony, I want to go back a little bit here. I want to ask you, because you've been around so long and covered a lot of the politics in this town. So when Gene Klein, the former owner that sells them to the Spanos in the early 80s, Alex Spanos at the time, the patriarch, comes to town here. They were riding high from the Fouts years and all. They bring the Republican National Convention into town. This is our town, our adopted city here. Things look great. They spent over 10 years trying to get a stadium done. Oceanside, National City, we're going to float one out in the bay, all sorts of ideas. What happened? How'd we get here?
Well, you're right. Alex Spanos, a self-made billionaire, bought the team, bought a controlling interest in the team for, $75 million from Gene Klein. And things were great. He came down and he had money, and 1994 Super Bowl, and things were fine. He then leaves and lets his son, Dean, take over. Alex is now now 93, and for the last decade he has been in
public,
severe dementia.
Right.
So he's not been a part of it. So it's been Dean's baby, and we know what we've gotten since then. So now, is that a malpractice on the part of Dean Spanos? Hey, on a strictly financial look, if you believe Forbes magazine, they say the Rams' value doubled overnight.
When they moved from St. Louis to Los Angeles.
Absolutely. Will the same thing happen for the Spanos family? Remember, this is a family organization.
Right.
All 4 of Alex Spanos' siblings work for some part of his organization, be it the construction or the football.
The sons,
and now the second generation is also. So this is a family business, which just doubled, possibly, its value overnight. That's hard to walk away from, however beautiful
but Tony,
La Jolla is.
To be fair, that's only worth something if the team is sold.
When you sell, that's right.
Because it's just like having a house, right? The value of your house can double or triple or quadruple.
And it can drop 40% in a big recession,
but it doesn't
too.
change your day-to-day life
Right.
if you're not selling the house. And they've given no indication that they're interested in selling.
Yes, but there is also the television issue. Remember, all the teams share equally. So if suddenly the LA market, and this is their fingers crossed, they hope, explodes and just loves the Chargers and the Rams to death, that's more money for all the NFL. But you're right. But again, it's a family business, and if they're thinking this generation, next generation, next generation, next generation, at some point they're going to sell this thing and just retire to Tahiti, presumably, and it's going to be worth a heck of a lot more at our disadvantage down here in wonderful San Diego.
Well, let's talk about that LA market a little bit here. They're going to be the second banana. There's plenty of examples of 2 teams and cities around the country that have been there a lot longer. The Angels have been up there for, 50 years in baseball, always in the Dodgers' shadow, as it were. Here, Tony, your old paper, the LA Times, said, "We don't want you." Bill Plaschke, the lead sports columnist, don't come. We don't want you.
Don't believe that stuff. That's just newspaper talk. For 20 years, they were begging, please send us a team, send us 2 teams. Now they have 2 teams. Now they want to be wooed. So they want their self-image back.
They might have been begging, but they didn't go to public finance. And there's a reason
no, they
why
turned that down a couple of times.
why the 2 biggest stadiums in the LA area was the Rose Bowl, built in 1921, and the Coliseum in 23. There was a little break after that.
Why Houston got a replacement team?
Right.
They paid for it.
They paid for
LA turned the idea down.
And the thing is,
Roger?
people forget this is not in the city of LA. They did nothing. They had to do nothing to get this. It was Inglewood that carried the water for the region, and LA said, "Thank you, we'd love to have you." They didn't have to pay a penny.
And it gave Spanos leverage that he had never had. I mean, for a decade, as he likes to tell us, he had come to the city and put forth plans. How good they were is another question. But he didn't have leverage. Suddenly, with first the Raiders and that Carson idea, and then Kroenke with the Inglewood idea, he had leverage and he used it.
Well, here, before you get to that, Eric, and I'll come right back to you, but I want to hear here's what Spanos had to say. This was in a letter here. Our entire organization knows we have a tremendous amount of work to do. We must earn the respect and support of LA football fans. We got to get back to winning. We must make a meaningful contribution, not just on the field, in the community, a leader, champion for the community. Well, first of all, you got 2 lousy teams up there right now.
3 if you count UCLA.
Okay, but on the pro level.
SC is the other pro team.
Yeah.
They're doing
That's true.
But 2 stinkers on the pro level up there,
It's
winning.
the point I was going to make too, and just imagine the Roundtable, right? We're very comfortable here, a handful of people. In Los Angeles, we have the same size table with 20 more people sitting around. There are a lot more mouths to feed in the LA market. It's a bigger market.
On the other hand, Danny Woodhead's leg heals. Mantauteo comes back. Melvin Gordon does.
Everybody loves a winner.
But
it could happen.
There's this black cloud. I mean, to not make the playoffs in 6 out of 7 years with Phillip Rivers as quarterbacks is a joke. To own a franchise for 33 years and to make the playoffs 9 times, please. To be an organization that fired Don Coryell, fired Bobby Ross, the only guy who took to the Super Bowl, and fired Marty Schottenheimer, who went 14-2. In reverse, they brought back a guy who went 1-15 in Mike Riley, and Mike McCoy 4-12. So this isn't a well-run organization. And at some point, they're going to have to win, or at some point, they're going to have to hire somebody that knows what the heck they're doing.
How about the new coach? Do you like him, Anthony Lane?
You know, from what I know about him, but, let's see. It's another cheap hire.
They ought to be thankful the Lions are in the league, or they'd be one of the worst franchises the last 50 years.
Well, that's setting the bar pretty low.
Yeah, I know it is.
Mark, sorry, Mark.
Mark, you quoted him saying something about community involvement. Well, that's been one of the objections or concerns about Chargers in San Diego. They did not provide much in the way of philanthropic support for anybody. They sent their players out to sign autographs and visit the schools, but they were not, even though Dean was here for many years, they were not in the same league as John Moore's or Irwin Jacobs, the other billionaires here and there, and they did not figure into the social
And yet the fans love them, as you say, Jay. At your book signings, the people love them. We have a bite here I want to set up, and a lot of folks were upset and giving back their souvenirs and their jerseys and their equipment. One, Daniel Garcia, longtime fan, was at a small crowd at the Chargers Park. Let's hear what he had to say.
Oh, it hurts. I mean, I got San Diego Chargers on tattooed on my arm. I've been watching games since I was 8 years old. Still remember the Super Bowl, and for that guy to do that, it's just wrong. Everything that I had that San Diego on it, that Chargers, I just threw it away.
Yeah, a lot of upset people here. Now, does the music stop for the Chargers in the sense that you're not going to see another publicly financed stadium in California, period? That's just...
Well, I think that train left a long time ago, if it was ever at this station.
There's the last two built. You got San Francisco, and now this one in Inglewood.
Both privately financed. And that's the kind of the key here. People go, well, you know, they've done it in other cities. Well, this isn't Indianapolis, and this isn't Minneapolis, or wherever. California is just a tough place to get stuff done.
And we don't have the corporate heavyweights that they do in Santa Clara, where the San Francisco 49ers are now playing 50 miles away from San Francisco, where they have all the corporate boys. We are still the branch office city that we love ourselves, but we don't have the, well, we have Irwin, but he opted not to get involved.
Where are the Chargers going to play temporarily up there? Because they're out of here.
They're going to play at the StubHub Center, which is a soccer arena. It's about 30,000 feet, so they're selling the
30,000 seats.
That's 30,000 seats. They're selling the intimate experience of playing in a small venue.
But it sounds kind of, Bush League, doesn't it?
They're playing second fiddle to the soccer team before they play second fiddle to
the Rams.
Team.
On the other hand, if they start winning, if they're 7-1, 2/3 of the way through the season,
that I think too.
Many things will be.
You got to realize the guys at Park Avenue, they're looking at this thing 30, 40, 50 years down the road. Will there be some early stumbles? Absolutely. Will they have to gain some traction? I think so. But 30 years down the road, we talk about how big LA is now. Can you imagine, the audience they might have at some point?
And you have to understand that there's a range of opinion among fans. I just wanted to get back to that quickly because there are some fans who will continue to watch and support the Chargers.
Maybe even go up to games.
They'll be able to see them. They'll be able to occasionally go up for a game because they still support that team. There are some fans who will never watch them again and turn their back whenever they drive through town, if they do. It's a whole range, I think, of reactions.
Tony?
What's our chance? Okay, Raiders, come on. All is forgiven. Come on down. We don't want to go to Las Vegas.
Another team coming here, Jay.
We're picking the other inept run franchise with no money. But there was a reason the NFL didn't give the Chargers and Raiders their plum.
A poor thing, but our own. Come on.
But if we're not building a stadium for a team that we supported for 6 decades, why would you build a team for your most hated
rival? On the other
rival?
hand, they want out of Oakland, or they're getting run out of Oakland for various reasons. Right. Maybe Qualcomm doesn't look as bad as our
Well, we do know they can fill it up. We do know that.
All right, now the Chargers, if you're going to look ahead to the city budget here, we're still going to see line items, are we not, going forth, Roger, here? They did the last upgrades to Qualcomm, and we're going to pay for that for another decade or so.
Well, every year the Chargers were here, they owed less and less on their closing or their moving out of San Diego, and now they're going to pay, I forgot, $10 or $15 million to leave early. But San Diego still has millions of dollars to pay in annual debt payment on the expansion of 1998. So there's that cost. We may not have the same sort of police presence and that sort of thing required at football games, but we have the building to maintain indefinitely until we decide what to do with it.
Well, let's shift into that discussion now. Tell us how big that site is. Has there been a recent appraisal? I mean, it's a big, valuable plot of land right there in the smack in the center of the Mission Valley.
166 acres. That's equivalent to like 60 blocks of downtown San Diego.
60, that's huge.
So it's a huge plot of land. And the stadium itself covers about 15 acres of it. So that's where you start with. You have all this asphalt parking lot surrounding it.
Biggest lot in the country, wasn't it?
Since 1967, so it's been there forever in most people's lives here. So what do you do with it? As Eric said, the San Diego State is thinking about having a West Campus developed there with a Aztec stadium for them, for the Aztecs, and maybe Major League Soccer. Then you'd fill up the rest of the land with student housing, some faculty activities. It becomes a really cool addition to San Diego State's campus.
And if you had that soccer stadium, presumably the Aztecs college team moves right over and plays there. We don't know where they're going to play. Qualcomm for now, I guess, but at some point that's going to be gone.
Now, when the mayor's task force said, okay, let's build at this 166-acre city-owned property, immediately the Chargers said, no, No, that's not an option. We liked it a few years ago and I won't like it now because it just can't happen because of this, that, and the other. It's not. Was that ever credible in your mind that that was a no-go?
That was the only reason they didn't want Mission Valley is because they wanted to use redevelopment money downtown. And in the meantime, redevelopment went away, and they were stuck with this downtown option. And they said, well, we'll add a convention center to it and make that easy. Right. It costs less to have one building than two. So that was their thinking, and that's why it was on the ballot.
So the Mission Valley site was credible if financed in a certain way? I mean, they were claiming the egress and ingress and lawsuits and environmental problems. Was that just...
You know, can you say that with a straight face?
Yeah.
Right.
No, I'm just saying what they said.
Egress and ingress into that site. It's at the intersection of two major freeways.
Plus the trolley line goes through the middle of it.
It had worked well enough for the Chargers and for the Padres before that. It worked well enough for the one Super Bowl that the NFL agreed to bring to San Diego.
So this was
if we made that $78 million
This was the Chargers' way of just scuttling what the mayor wanted to do. And get one step closer to Los Angeles?
I can't peer deep into the heart of Dean Stannis and see exactly what he wanted and what he decided to. But based on what I've seen, when the city made the offer 2 days later, it was just 2 days later that it was made public that they wanted to go up to Carson with the Raiders. Mm-hmm. Right? The city said, look, here's a plan in Mission Valley. Our team has looked at it. We vetted it. It's going to work. And 2 days later, he says, well, we want to move up to Carson and build a house with the Raiders. And
well, let's look forward to another thing, which is
those two together.
That money that was going to go to that the convadium downtown and that whole idea. That money presumably is there. The mayor talked about raising the tax on tourists, and we got a lot of the other problems and opportunities. What are some of the things that money stream might go to instead of the Chargers?
We never did find out what that money stream was. And he said $200 million. The university said, we have $100 million. Well, they hadn't raised $100 million. So it was all just phony money sitting out there.
Well, presumably there's a big fire hose of money there if they want to raise that tourist tax. And what might that go for?
But that requires another 2/3 vote. Anyway, so Faulkner gave a State of the City address last night on Thursday night, and he said, I want to raise the tax, the same tax the Chargers wanted. 1 penny will go to transportation, homelessness, and 2 pennies will go to a convention center expansion. So that's
downtown on the waterfront.
Right.
Okay, and that's a whole other discussion there, where the rising seas and flooded buildings and the life of that building and all of that stuff.
This is above ground, not below ground.
Yeah, but so the parking lots are below ground, and it's everything might be below water here.
We're always looking for somebody else to pay for things. I mean, we'll do environmental measures with dirty water if the feds give us money. We'll do something with homeless if we can force visitors to pay. I mean,
it's worked for the NFL all these years. Have somebody else pay for it.
It just seems like in God we trust while others pay cash. I mean, we always want somebody else to bail us out.
One other interesting thing was The Guardian had an article yesterday out of London, and they said that they felt like this was the first time that a city had said no to the NFL, and they had said that they didn't want to pay a huge exorbitant fee to build a new stadium. And they said that was quite a change. Even in St. Louis was trying to keep the team, and they were putting up a lot of money locally. But they said it's the first time that that answer had been given back as no, and the NFL didn't get what they want after decades of leeching billions of dollars out of local communities.
Is this a warning shot, Jay, heard around the league?
Interesting. It could be, but again, California is that different little nugget. But I think what's interesting that we hear of Kevin Faulkner, the mayor, maybe wanting to run for governor. Well, with one decision here with the Chargers, he made the second largest city people mad, and he made the first largest city people mad because they have to take the Chargers. So I'm sure how that's going to work out.
We had a little instant poll about this yesterday, and who was at fault? 7% Faulkner, 70% Chargers.
Yeah, so
he's not paying a political price at the moment.
At the moment. I'll tell you, though, that's interesting. It gets back to our look ahead here. So he has this great opportunity in this legacy thing and maybe a springboard to run for governor as a moderate Republican. It all kind of depends on what happens now and what his leadership does with that Mission Valley site and the opportunities.
Half the equation. I think that's half.
He met with our editorial board yesterday, and he said, we asked him that very question. No, I'm not running for governor. I repeat what I said before. I'm going to serve out my 4 years of mayor job till 2020.
Because he would run in 2018, huh? Okay.
But I think that was a big challenge for the mayor during this whole process. He had to come across looking like he was doing everything possible to keep the team here, regardless of what happened. And I think an objective person could look at that and say, yes, he fulfilled that, and I think that's why
I think he did. I think in 2015 with his task force, he moved more quickly and with greater boldness than we associate with Kevin Faulkner. Now, it was bold but cautious on some city property, but still, that's more than we associate with Kevin.
A few seconds left. I'll give you the last word here, Jay.
I think it was telling when he did put that support in, Measure C. I mean, he parachuted in there pretty late, so he could say he supported it, but he wasn't out on the corners holding signs up, let's put it that way.
Right. Okay, well, we have run out of time here, and I thank you all for that lively discussion. We'll hear a lot more on this as we go forward. That does wrap up another week of stories at the KPBS Roundtable. I'd like to thank my guests, sports writer and author Jay Paris, Eric Anderson of KPBS News, freelance journalists Tony Perry, and Roger Sholey of the San Diego Union Tribune. A reminder, all the stories we discussed today are available on our website, kpbs.org. I'm Mark Sauer. Thanks for joining us today on the Roundtable.